Chidose is a handsome gigachad who doesn't want a girlfriend. However, when the most popular girls in school start confessing to him, he decides to crack them all instead. It is the start of a new school year, and we follow this handsome Chad who thinks that he is the center of the universe by living beautifully and helping others. While scrolling through his phone, his cute classmate, Yuwa, greets him and asks what he is looking at. Chidose shows her a post from an anonymous social media account that is trash-talking him, calling him a womanizer who likes to crack all the school's hot women, their mothers, and even grandmothers. The comment annoys him, but Yuwa reassures him that since most people actually like him, the drama will probably fade away. Later on, they meet up with the rest of their popular group filled with hot baddies and handsome dudes. While Chidose and his hot friends are having a blast and laughing along, he notices some students annoyed by their presence as the typical popular friend group, but Chidose convinces himself that haters will always hate. Then, their homeroom teacher walks into class and introduces himself as Kura, which Chidose knows to be a lazy bum that is beloved by the students for his chill guy attitude. Lazily, he asks Chidose to take over and address who should be the class representative, but as he's about to do so, his popular friend group immediately hijack the election process and proposes that Chidose simply take the position. When Chidose accepts, one of his popular friends, Yuko, jumps in to volunteer to be his vice, despite being a dummy who's only pretty but has nothing in her head, and everyone supports her, resulting in the two becoming the class reps. Later, during lunch, Chidose meets up with Kura, who shows him a photo of a student named Kenta, a lonely anime-loving loser like you guys, who has been absent from school for 2 semesters, and Kura asks Chidose to bring him back. When Chidose asks why him, Kura explains that only students understand what other students are facing, so he needs Chidose to understand why Kenta is absent and get Kenta back to school. When Chidose tries to reject, Kura reminds him of his own ego of wanting to be a hero-like figure who can do it all. And while that annoys Chidose, he does not want his reputation as the guy who can do anything to disappear, so he accepts the request, convincing himself that his philosophy of living beautifully must continue. The next day, Chidose waits for Yuwa after school, and when she arrives, she quickly turns back to apply makeup, making sure she looks her best around him. She asks why he chose her to help him get Kenta back, and Chidose explains that, unlike him, she rarely has people who dislike her. Then, they arrive at Kenta's house, where Kenta's mother greets them, and after they inform her why they're there, she sends them off to meet with Kenta. When the two try talking to Kenta from behind the door, the shut-in loser recognizes and mocks Chidose as the school's Zeus, who cracks anything that moves, which angers Chidose and needs Yuwa to calm him. Then, Yuwa tries speaking, but Kenta identifies her as one of Chidose's hoe of a baby mama, which also angers her. Chidose tries to ease the tension by bringing up light novels, assuming that Kenta likes them, but Kenta snaps back that Chidose doesn't really like light novels and is faking it, mentioning masterpieces like I Cracked My Dad, Who Accidentally Turned Into My Lover, and The Day I Turned Into Yamcha and Wiped Out the Bums in Jujutsu Kaisen. The two admit that they never read those, and Yuwa politely asks for recommendations, but Kenta mocks her for pretending to care and tells her to suck herself. Sensing the hostility, Chidose decides they should leave, and on the ride home, all Chidose can think about is how much Kenta seems to hate him. That night, Chidose decides to try a different strategy, and he brings the equivalent of a human sunshine, Yuko, with him on the next visit, believing her presence might help. When they reach Kenta's house again, the goon-loving loser once more tells Chidose to leave and screw himself, and when he hears that Yuwa is not with him, he assumes she simply does not care about him. Chidose insists that she is not like that, and then, Yuko introduces herself to him. Kenta accuses her of only helping Chidose to earn relationship points with him, and Yuko honestly admits she does want to impress Chidose and become the #1 girl in his mind. Just then, Yuwa realizes something and asks if he stopped coming to school because a girl rejected him. Kenta confirms it, saying that he's just like Yuko, who is fighting to get Chidose's attention from other girls, but Yuko counters that, unlike him, she intends to win Chidose over other girls. Hearing this, Chidose asks Yuko to go downstairs for tea, then he asks Kenta to open the door so they can talk properly. When Kenta tells him to lick grass, Chidose goes away, but Kenta admits to himself how he wishes that he could be with them. Suddenly, Kenta notices a shadow outside his window, and it turns out to be Chidose, who smashes through it with a baseball bat, saying with a smile that he wants Kenta to come outside and see if they can find something in common. Kenta warns Chidose that what he just did is a crime, but Chidose simply shrugs and calmly reassures him that everything is fine, saying that Kenta's mother had already given him permission to come in and talk. Chitose then sits down across from him and suggests they talk honestly with each other so they can know each other better. Hearing that, Kenta finally lets everything out, and he talks about how much he hates the popular kids who seem to look down on losers like him, and says they should at least learn to treat people like him as real human beings. He complains that they're only popular because they're good-looking or athletic, but Chitose tells him that he's wrong. He explains that while some people may start with natural advantages, people like Yuko, Yuwa, and even his athlete friends still work hard to reach where they are now. Kenta argues that someone like him can never beat gifted people, no matter how hard he tries, so trying at all feels pointless. But Chitose disagrees and tells him that he has to trust his own effort and believe in himself. Chitose then starts teaching Kenta how to communicate better by telling him to ask more questions and listen more. Chitose brings up the topic of light novels, and Kenta doesn't believe for a second that Chitose actually enjoys reading them. But Chitose insists that he spent an entire week reading great titles like I Got Reincarnated as a Willy and Cried When I Realized That It's All Dudes. To prove it, he even explains the plot of one of the stories in detail, which leaves Kenta shocked. Kenta asks why Chitose would go that far just to prove a point, and Chitose answers that he hates it when people insult others without even trying to understand them first, which is exactly what Kenta did to him. He explains that real communication begins with the desire to understand someone better, and that was what Yuwa and Yuko tried to do with Kenta. Because of that, Chitose points out that Kenta ended up doing the same thing he hated others for, which surprises him. Chitose then pulls a book from Kenta's shelf and begins telling him a story about a man who was born with incredible talent. According to Chitose, this guy was handsome, cracked all the baddies, and would have taken down North Korea. On top of that, he worked hard through training and study, earning good grades and a strong reputation, but because he seemed too perfect, people eventually started to resent him. Whenever he made even the smallest mistake, others would jump at the chance to mock him. Trying to make people like him more, the man began lowering his grades on purpose, but instead of helping, it only made people dislike him even more. Hearing this frustrates Kenta. However, Chitose continues by saying that a teacher eventually helped that man by telling him to accept the talents and advantages he was born with and to take responsibility as someone who could lead others. After that, the man stopped holding himself back. He kept improving and aimed to rise higher than before, living freely and beautifully in a way no one else could reach, like the sparkling glass bottle of ramyun. Kenta asks who the story is about, and when Chitose casually says it's about himself, Kenta tells him to stop praising himself so much. Still, Kenta admits that he turned Chitose into the villain of his own story even though he barely knew him. Chitose says that people often exaggerate both the good and bad sides of popularity, but Kenta doesn't see why that matters, since Chitose seems to be winning at life anyway, considering the baddies that want to gobble his glizzy. When Chitose asks what he means, Kenta says it's obvious that someone as handsome as he can easily attract girls. Chitose replies that it's not always great when people call him a womanizer every single day, and Kenta says that there will always be people trying to bring others down. Chitose agrees but reminds him that his own friends are genuinely good people, so instead of focusing on other people's hate, Chitose tells him to concentrate on improving himself. Kenta brings up how easy it must be for Chitose to date people, and Chitose admits that while that part may be true, it can also become complicated when even his own friends develop feelings for him. Kenta then decides to talk about what happened to him, and Chitose is glad he's finally opening up, though he says he can already guess the story. Kenta confessed to a girl from his otaku club, but she rejected him harshly because he wasn't her Prince Charming, and that rejection made him start hating both her and everyone else. The two end up bonding over Kenta's painful experience. While outside the room, Yuki listens quietly and feels relieved that things are moving in a better direction. Soon, they start talking about what Kenta should do next. Kenta says he doesn't have feelings for the girl, Miki, anymore, but he still wants to become popular and asks Chitose to guide him. Chitose refuses at first, saying he doesn't want to spend all his time babysitting Kenta, and that Kenta needs to take responsibility for his own life. However, because he wants to live by his own principles, he eventually agrees to help Kenta get started for 3 weeks. The first thing he asks is what Kenta's goal is, and Kenta says he wants to prove himself to Miki and the people who bullied him. Chitose fully supports the idea of showing Miki that she missed out on dating him, but Kenta admits he's scared of facing Miki, or even girls in general now. Chitose jokes that Kenta simply hasn't experienced how good melons feel when squished, and that line catches Kenta's attention. Chitose encourages him to improve himself so that someday he can juggle a hot girl's jugs, and Kenta loudly screams that he will. Later, Kenta goes downstairs and apologizes to his mother for causing trouble and to Yuko for insulting her earlier. Yuko tells him it's fine, though she also points out that he really needs a shower. She then helps by cutting his hair, and Chitose says their first step should be giving Kenta a makeover, starting with putting him on a diet. He also takes Kenta's phone and temporarily bans him from using social media. When Kenta asks why, Chitose explains that Kenta needs to learn why hiding behind anonymous accounts to hate on others is unhealthy. After that, Chitose sits down with Yuko, who is happy that everything worked out. Chitose says he simply pushed Kenta to move forward and find someone new, but Yuko praises him, saying his personality makes it easy for people to like him, just like she does. Chitose asks her not to bring up their past again, but Yuko says she still hopes that one day he will open his heart to her, because there are many things she wants to tell him. The next morning, Kenta feels nervous about returning to school after being absent for months, but Chitose tells him that feeling nervous is the first step toward making a big change. When they enter the classroom, Chitose introduces Kenta with a joke, saying that Kenta is known as the tripod for an obvious big reason. He even jokes that Kenta stopped coming to school because he got rejected for not being able to fit, and Kenta becomes tense. But Chitose tells him that sometimes making people laugh helps break the tension. Then, the rest of Chitose's friends join in and lightly tease Kenta about the rejection, making the class laugh. Although Kenta feels a bit insecure, Chitose explains that there's a difference between joking around and genuinely insulting someone, and learning that difference is important. When their teacher arrives and sees Kenta back in class, he realizes Chitose succeeded in bringing him back, so the teacher decides to give the class some extra time so everyone can help Kenta readjust. At lunch, the girls become curious about Kenta's unusual meal, and Kenta explains that he's starting a diet following Chitose's advice so he can become less similar to Jabba the Hutt. They ask what exactly happened before, and Kenta tells them about his otaku club, where there was a girl named Miki whom he liked, but she chose another member who was hotter, and even after Kenta gathered the courage to confess, she rejected him, which broke his heart. Chitose adds that Miki even called him a fat loser before turning him down. Hearing that, everyone shows support for Kenta and tells him that confessing in the first place was already a brave and manly thing to do. However, later, Chitose's buddy, Kazuki, pulls Chitose aside and questions why Chitose suddenly brought someone new into their group, and warns him that a person like Kenta probably won't change that easily. Chitose disagrees and says he believes Kenta can become someone better. Later, on the rooftop, Chitose sits with Kura, who compliments him for completing his mission so smoothly. But Chitose then asks him what it truly means to live life for oneself. Kura thinks quietly for a moment, lights a cigarette, and explains that many people doubt their own judgment and purpose. Because of that, they often compare themselves to others or try to drag others down. According to Kura, living life fully means trusting your own compass and following it without hesitation. Hearing that makes Chitose wonder if his own compass is still pointing in the right direction like it once did. After school, Chitose walks home and notices Asuka sitting alone and reading a book. The moment reminds them of the first time they met the previous year. Back then, Chitose was walking home when he noticed a younger boy being bullied by two other kids. Chitose was about to step in when a silver-haired girl suddenly jumped into the water. That girl was Asuka, and she cheerfully declared that she wanted to join the fun and began splashing around with the boy, turning the situation into a lighthearted game instead. She even invited the other boys to join, and soon all of them were laughing together in the water before heading home as friends. It resulted in Asuka's clothes becoming wet.
Wow! Beautiful!
And when she caught Chitose staring, she teased him for looking at her while she was wet. Chitose handed her a towel and asked why she jumped in instead of simply pulling the boy out and scolding the others. Asuka replied that she thought it would be better if everyone went home messy, but smiling rather than fighting. From that moment on, Chitose found himself captivated by her. Back in the present, Asuka comments that Chitose seems imperfectly perfect, like he's pretty to look at but lacking something deeper. She then asks him if she and another girl close to her were both drowning while Chitose only had a two-person kayak who he would save. Before he answers, she confidently says she would save him instead because she likes him more than any boy in her class. Chitose laughs and says her romantic confession is terrible, but she clarifies that it is not a confession. She claims that someone like him would not choose between the girls. Instead, he would put both of them on the kayak and sacrifice himself to the piranhas because self-sacrifice would be the most beautiful option. Chitose laughs the idea off, saying he would never do that, but Asuka insists that such a self-sacrificing choice fits his nature perfectly, and her words leave him speechless. About a week passed, Chitose and Yuko decide it is time to take him out shopping, so he can update his wardrobe and stop in a small shop where Kenta tries on different pairs of glasses. After finishing their shopping, Yuko suggests stopping by a restaurant where Kenta plans to meet some of his old friends later. The three of them sit down, and Kenta shows Chitose messages on his phone, where the girl he used to like, Miki, mocked him when he invited her, and the rest of the group chat started talking again only after he left. Chitose scoffs at how awkward the whole exchange looks. Yuko then asks Kenta what he hopes to achieve by reconnecting with friends who abandoned him, and Kenta says that he wants them to see how much he has changed. Hearing that gives Yuko an idea, so she calls a server and asks them to take a photo of the three of them together. When Kenta sees the picture, he is amazed at how different he looks compared to before. Yuko points out that the photo makes them look like close friends, and Chitose reminds Kenta that he should never forget how much effort he put into improving himself. He tells him that the key is to keep moving forward and never stop trying to get better. Hearing those words, Kenta quietly promises himself that he will not let the efforts of his new friends go to waste, and watching Kenta smile like that, Chitose admits to himself that Kenta is amazing for truly changing. He hopes that someday Kenta will look back on this moment of his life with pride. A few days later at school, Chitose finds that some students are pressuring Kenta, asking why someone like him is hanging around Chitose's group. Yuwa tries to defend him, but the bullies tell her that a boring pair of cheeks like her also don't fit in Chitose's group. Outside the classroom, Chitose listens along with his two other friends, Yuzuki and Kazuki. Chitose asks them to help him deal with the situation, as he's furious that the harassment could undo all the progress Kenta has made. With a plan made, the three of them enter the classroom acting relaxed, as if nothing unusual is happening. Chitose approaches the main bully and casually says he has no idea who the guy is. The boy becomes offended and reminds him that they once faced each other in a baseball game, introducing himself as Uemura. Meanwhile, Kazuki smoothly turns his attention to another bully, a girl named Ayase, and quickly charms her. She softens almost immediately, but then says Chitose and Kazuki should hang out with her instead of girls like Yuwa and Yuzuki. Uemura asks why Chitose is even spending time with someone like Kenta, and Chitose calmly replies that he hangs out with whoever he wants, even if that person is Kenta. Sensing the tension rising, Kazuki suggests everyone calm down, but Uemura refuses and says that he hates people like Chitose who seem to succeed without ever experiencing failure. According to him, someone like Kenta should not waste Chitose's time. After saying that, he finally releases his grip on Kenta's head, leaving Kenta shaken by the confrontation. Later, Kenta asks Chitose what he should have done when facing those bullies. Chitose answers that as long as Kenta keeps believing in himself, their insults will never truly reach him. On the walk home, Chitose cannot stop thinking about what happened, as since he was the one who started Kenta's transformation, he feels partly responsible. He worries that if Kenta keeps pushing forward like this, more people may hurt him, leaving deeper scars. Just then, his friend Haru suddenly appears and invites Chitose to hang out with her. They head to the sports field and start stretching together. While talking, they bring up Chitose's past as a baseball player and the reason he quit. Chitose pretends that baseball no longer matters to him, but Haru immediately calls him out for lying, knowing how much effort he once put into the sport. They end up playing basketball, and Haru challenges him to a match, saying that if Chitose loses, he has to tell her what has been bothering him lately. Chitose agrees, adding that if Haru loses, she has to answer an embarrassing question of his, and the loser must also buy food for the winner. After a back and forth, Haru ends up winning, and she encourages him to talk about what is weighing on his mind. Chitose admits that he is worried about Kenta, fearing that Kenta's plan to show his old friends how much he has changed will fail. Because of that, Chitose wants to do something to ensure it works. Hearing that, Haru calls him an idiot and tells him that he has already done everything he can to help Kenta. So now, what he needs to do is to trust Kenta to handle things himself, just like a coach trusts the players after training them as much as possible. She says that by worrying too much, Chitose is actually disrespecting Kenta's determination, as according to her, Chitose should not act as if everything depends on him. Later, Chitose talks with Yuzuki on the phone. They joke around and playfully roleplay while chatting. During the conversation, Yuzuki asks why he helped Kenta in the first place. Chitose claims it was only because Kura forced him to do it, but Yuzuki says that explanation is wrong. She believes he did it because he is Chitose, the kind of person who cannot ignore someone in trouble. She even calls him self-righteous and says he has a savior complex. The comment surprises him, but he cannot deny it either. Yuzuki then says that since she figured him out, he now owes her a favor. When Chitose asks what she wants, she suddenly asks him to be her boyfriend. The request catches him off guard, but she quickly admits she got carried away with the role-playing. Still, Chitose continues the playful tone and asks what color her pepperoni holders are. Teasing him, Yuzuki says it is a deep blue like the night sky, and that it fastens with a hook in the back. The thought lingers in Chitose's mind and makes it difficult for him to fall asleep that night. A week later, it is almost the last day of Chitose's mentoring, and Chitose reassures him that he will soon show everyone how much he has changed. However, Kenta admits that he is no longer sure if he even wants to prove anything to those people. Later that day, they play football at school, and Uemura challenges Chitose to a match. saying the losing side must complete an embarrassing forfeit, which Chitose accepts. Kenta looks nervous, but Chitose tells him it is just a game and promises to pass the ball to him often. Kenta worries because he is terrible at sports, but Chitose tells him to relax and have fun since he is not part of the bet. Once the match begins, Chitose and Kazuki carry most of the team's performance, but they repeatedly try to give Kenta chances to score. Each time he fails badly, the crowd laughs, which slowly crushes his confidence. When Chitose helps him up after one of the failed attempts, he realizes how seriously Kenta takes everything. Chitose only wanted him to join because games are more enjoyable when everyone participates, even those who are not athletic. But with each mistake, Kenta becomes more self-conscious. During the final play, they attempt to pass to Kenta again, but this time, he refuses to move. Chitose takes the shot himself and scores an incredible goal, though his team still loses the match overall. While Chitose performs the embarrassing forfeit, Uemura quietly says something to Kenta that affects him. Later, before heading home, Yuko and Chitose casually talk about Kenta's performance. They joke about it without any mean to hurt him, but Kenta overhears them and assumes they are mocking him. He confronts them, and Chitose explains that it was only harmless teasing and that he would have said the same thing directly to Kenta's face. But the explanation only makes Kenta more upset, and he claims that Uemura was right and that he is nothing more than a joke to Chitose. Yuko tries to correct him, but Kenta refuses to listen, reminding them that tomorrow is their last day working together. Kenta vents his frustration, saying someone like him struggles with sports while someone like Chitose dragged him into the game, let him embarrass himself, and then stole the spotlight in the end, which makes Kenta feel like a complete joke of a clown. Yuko finally snaps back, saying that after spending weeks with them, Kenta should know that Chitose would never laugh behind someone's back. Those words make Kenta hesitate. Then Chitose steps forward and apologizes for crossing the line between joking and bullying, admitting that his actions hurt Kenta. Overwhelmed with guilt, Kenta runs away. As he leaves, Chitose calls out and wishes him luck for his upcoming meeting with his old friends, telling him that he still believes in him. Later, while walking home, Yuko calls Chitose a hero for helping someone like Kenta. She even admits that she originally doubted Kenta could change. Chitose shakes his head and says he is not a hero, but Yuko insists that he is, saying she trusts her instincts when it comes to recognizing people who are truly good deep down. At the same time, Kenta heads toward the restaurant, weighed down by guilt over how he lashed out at Chitose and Yuko. He realizes he may have ruined the friendships he just gained, but after 3 intense weeks of effort under Chitose's guidance, he refuses to let everything go to waste. More than anything, he does not want to disappoint the person who changed his life the most. When he enters the restaurant, Miki, the girl he once wanted to crack, is there with the 2 guys who used to compete for her attention and is probably now taking turns to crack her. They are shocked by how much Kenta has changed, but their surprise quickly turns into mockery. Remembering Chitose's advice, Kenta keeps his composure and calmly explains that he wanted to become more social. They laugh at him, insisting that a loser like him could never fit into a social setting. But Kenta steadies himself again and says he is simply trying to feel comfortable in his own skin. They sit together, but the insults continue. They tell him that a place like a cafe does not suit him, and that they have been happier ever since he left their group. They also suggest that his transformation must be fake, that he probably relied on shortcuts and had other people fix his appearance. Kenta replies that his new friends helped him improve, which catches Miki off guard, and she sharply asks if he has already forgotten about her. Kenta calmly responds that he will not interfere with her relationship with Ren anymore, but that only angers them further. Miki bluntly says she was only ever nice to him out of pity, and they try to convince him that his new friends are only using him, just like everyone else. At that moment, Kenta realizes something. The way they speak reminds him of how he used to be as a person who was bitter, insecure, and quick to judge others. Even so, Chitose still reached out to him. Then Ren reveals something cruel. He admits that while Kenta was trying to get close to Miki, he had already been secretly making her call him daddy every Friday. To make things worse, he shows Kenta messages on his phone, which show that every time Kenta sent something heartfelt to Miki, she shared it with Ren, and the 2 of them laughed at him. Ren even admits that he was the one telling Miki what to reply, meaning Kenta had been falling for words that were never truly hers. The truth hits Kenta hard, realizing that his first love was never real. As they laugh at him, he feels the weight of everything crashing down. In that moment, he understands that this is the result of pushing away the people who actually cared about him. His mind drifts back to his old habits, and he wants to run away, lock himself in his room again, and disappear from the world. He imagines apologizing to Chitose and Yuko for failing to change. But just as those thoughts take over, he remembers Chitose's words. Then, as if on cue, Chitose appears beside him. saying he is there to keep his promise to back him up. The others are confused by the sudden arrival of this confident stranger, and Chitose introduces himself as both Kenta's classmate and his brother from another mother. He asks Kenta if he can really call himself that, and Kenta answers yes, adding that Chitose is too kind. Ren warns Chitose that Kenta is just a creepy otaku, but Chitose brushes it off and casually says he plans to go to events like Comic-Con with him. With Chitose's hand resting on his shoulder, Kenta realizes something important, and that is, despite all the criticism Chitose receives, he never abandons people. That belief is part of who he is, and it is something Kenta deeply values. Ren tries again, claiming that Kenta is obsessive and would act the same way toward anyone close to Chitose, but the Chad of all Chads remains calm and instead asks whether Miki ever truly had feelings for Kenta. When they confirm she never did, Chitose turns to Kenta and tells him that it means he never actually lost his first love, because it was never real to begin with. He adds that Kenta should not waste his feelings on people like them. Instead, he should save that sincerity for someone who truly deserves it. Frustrated, Ren stands up and accuses Chitose of picking a fight, but Chitose calmly reminds him that they were the ones who started it by going after his friend. The group insists that someone like Kenta is not worth Chitose's time and that he will eventually discard him anyway. Ren angrily declares that people like Kenta never change, that a loser will always remain a loser. At that point, Chitose finally shows his anger. He firmly states that Kenta has already taken his first step toward becoming a better version of himself. He contrasts that with Ren's behavior, pointing out that putting others down instead of growing is what truly keeps someone stuck. The entire cafe falls silent. Kenta stands there, overwhelmed, tears streaming down his face. For the first time, he sees Chitose not as someone who always smiles and hides his feelings, but as someone who can stand up for him without hesitation. In that moment, Kenta sees a path forward and a reason to keep moving. Just then, Yuko arrives, and with her presence alone, she eases the tension in the room. She greets Kenta warmly and casually plays with his hair, making it clear to everyone that he is not alone. She then turns to Miki and the others, signaling that the situation has gone far enough. Finally, she asks Kenta if he has anything he wants to say before leaving his past behind. Encouraged by both of them, Kenta declares that he is moving forward and will not look back. With that, he closes the chapter on his old life. Afterward, the three of them walk back together. Chitose and Yuko reassure Kenta that he did the right thing, especially after everything he went through. Chitose says he hopes the others learned something from the encounter, as it fits his belief in living life with dignity. He then reminds Kenta that the 3-week period they agreed on has come to an end. Kenta reflects on the moment Chitose broke into his room, saying that it was also the moment his closed heart finally opened. He promises to start his own journey from here and asks that if he ever becomes someone who can stand proudly beside them, he hopes they will accept him as a friend. He then thanks them sincerely and says he will always treasure the time they spent together. Chitose and Yuko laugh, and Yuko quickly explains that he misunderstood. The agreement only marked the end of their mentor-student relationship, not their friendship, and they tell him that he is already their friend, which fills him with genuine happiness. Later, Chitose meets Asuka at their usual spot and tells her everything that happened with Kenta and how much he has grown. Asuka calls it a beautiful story and notes that Chitose himself has changed a little. She explains that his idea of being a hero has evolved, and he is no longer a simple, straightforward kind of hero. Instead, he has become someone who shows warmth to others while being unusually harsh on himself. Chitose counters by saying that she was the real hero for helping that boy they once saw being bullied. Asuka dismisses the idea, saying she is just an ordinary girl and not someone who should be placed on a pedestal. Unlike him, she believes she cannot carry as many people's burdens. She then asks if he has any plans for the upcoming Golden Week. Chitose jokes about inviting her on a date. While she admits that it would be a lovely idea, she gently refuses, saying she would rather keep their relationship as it is. She worries that taking things further might change or even damage what they already have. The next day, Chitose rides his bike to meet up with a friend. When he arrives, only Yuzuki is there, having come early just like him since neither of them likes making others wait. They eat together, joke around, and tease each other as usual. Then, without warning, Yuzuki's tone shifts. She looks at him seriously and asks him to be her boyfriend. Yuzuki says to him that they are alike, and because of that, they should go out and start cracking. Chitose asks why she even wants a boyfriend, and she replies that, like any girl, she wants to date a handsome hunk like him. Still, he knows she isn't that shallow. He admits they are similar in the sense that both of them hide their real selves behind a mask, but that only convinces Yuzuki even more that they belong together, as being with someone who lets her be herself sounds perfect to her. However, Chitose calls out her usual act and makes it clear he won't fall for her sweet talk as easily as other guys. That only makes her heart race, and she teases him, saying he's making her want him even more. After that exchange, Yuzuki finally confesses that she feels like someone has been stalking her. When Chitose asks who it might be, she suspects it's a group of boys from another school called Yeikon, which Chitose knows is full of delinquents. Realizing the situation, Chitose understands why she suddenly wants a boyfriend. Yuzuki then formally asks him for two things as her boyfriend. First is to act like the perfect partner so the stalker loses interest, and second, to be ready to deal with the stalker if things get dangerous. Chitose admits he's never been in a fight, but Yuzuki begs him, saying he's her only option. When he hesitates, she goes as far as offering to do anything he wants in return, no matter how extreme, acknowledging that she's asking for his time and energy. Hearing that, Chitose agrees, but instead of taking advantage of her offer, he simply asks to use her as a way to release stress by juggling some balls in a game of basketball. Later, while taking a break, Yuzuki points out that he doesn't seem like the type to encourage girls. Chitose responds that people like them don't like being seen as weak. Even so, he tells her she can rely on him whenever she needs to. She worries he might not be there when it matters, but he assures her that if she calls his name, he'll show up, just like a hero. The next morning, Yuki is surprised to see Chitose arriving at school with Yuzuki and immediately suspects something is going on. Then, Yuzuki openly announces to the class that she's dating Chitose, shocking everyone. Yuko rejects the idea, insisting Yuzuki must be using him for her own reasons and that there's no way she would actually date him. Yuzuki fires back, saying the same applies to Yuko, which only makes her more upset and determined to win him back. Later, Chitose explains the real situation to his friends regarding what Yuzuki is dealing with. They become concerned, but support the plan, and even offer to help watch out for the stalker. He also tells Kura, who jokingly congratulates him but reminds him to stay careful, offering help if things get serious. After school, while Chitose waits for Yuzuki to finish basketball practice, Nazuna approaches him. She asks if the dating rumor is true, and when he confirms it, she says they don't suit each other at all. Chitose scolds her for speaking badly about Yuzuki, but Nazuna replies that she prefers saying things directly rather than behind someone's back. She even claims she would say the same to Yuzuki herself. Then she asks to exchange contacts, which he agrees to, but as soon as Yuzuki finishes practice, Nazuna quickly leaves. Yuzuki comes over with Haru, who mentions that Yuzuki lost her body wipes and needs to borrow some so she can smell nice for Chitose. Embarrassed, Yuzuki immediately shuts her down. On the way home, she insists she's sure she packed them, and the two realize someone likely snuck into the changing room and stole them. To lighten the mood, Chitose jokes that it's strange the thief chose body wipes instead of something more personal, which only makes Yuzuki more flustered. Yuzuki then suggests they should go on a proper date like a normal couple, but Chitose reminds her about her upcoming game and tells her to focus on that instead. He promises to cheer her on like a good boyfriend, and even adds that if she wins, he'll take her on a date and let her choose what they do. That motivates her to give it her all. She thanks him, and when he asks why, she doesn't answer. The following day at the library, Yuwa appears wearing glasses, surprising Yuzuki. Chitose explains that he suggested she switch to contact lenses, since the glasses make her look too attractive, and Yuzuki takes note of that comment. Soon after, Chitose spots some Yakon students outside and quietly alerts Yuzuki, which makes her nervous. When she notices them watching her, she quickly moves closer to him and says she doesn't recognize them. Chitose then steps away and decides to confront the group alone, while Yuzuki and the others watch anxiously. The boys approach him, acting friendly at first, and ask him to introduce Yuzuki to them and their seniors. Chitose refuses, saying that as her boyfriend, he wants her to himself. Chitose directly asks if they're the ones stalking her, which angers them. One of them tries to maintain a calm front by offering a handshake while squeezing tightly, but Chitose grips back harder, forcing him to back off in pain. The situation escalates, and they threaten him, but just then, his friends, Kazuki and Kaito, arrive to support him. Seeing them, the group backs off, though they warn that their senior will come after him. Afterward, Chitose and Yuzuki sit by the river. She apologizes for dragging him into her problem and putting him in danger. As she cries, he drapes his jacket over her shoulders and tells her he'll wait until she's back to her usual self. Once she calms down, she suddenly says she wants to eat katsudon, showing she's returned to normal. To be safe, Chitose teaches her a simple way to defend herself, though he quickly tells her not to try it on him. She helps him put his jacket back on, then leans her head against his back and quietly thanks him, telling him he was amazing for standing up for her. The next day during lunch, Chitose talks with Kenta and asks him whether he thinks those goons are the type to stalk people. Believes that they look more like the people who resort to violence, but suspects that they also might be creeps who like to watch girls feel scared getting stalked. It surprises Chitose that he knows such things, and Kenta assures him that he simply reads a lot and is not a degenerate with a stalking fetish. Just then, a student named Naruse pops up and asks Chitose for his time. Chitose introduces Kenta to him, and the dude asks Kenta for some privacy so he can talk to Chitose alone. However, Chitose refuses to let that happen, saying that Naruse should wait until lunch is over, considering he's having one with Kenta. Hearing that, Naruse apologizes to Kenta for being rude and gets to the point, asking Chitose if he's really dating Yuzuki, suspecting that it's a fake relationship. Chitose guesses that Naruse has a thing for Yuzuki, and Naruse fully admits that he does, claiming that he fell in love at first sight. Hearing that, Chitose tells him the truth of how the relationship is fake, but he refuses to tell him the reason why. That excites Naruse, and he begs Chitose to do him a favor in the form of telling him all about Yuzuki. Chitose refuses, saying that he might just fall in love with her, but Naruse doesn't mind, as he's willing to lose fair and square. After lunch, Kenta takes Chitose to the biology room, and he suddenly locks Chitose in, apologizing to him profusely for what's about to happen. Inside, Chitose realizes that Yuwa and Yuko are waiting for him, and they are both pissed at him for what happened. They scold him for putting himself in danger in place of others, saying that they also want to help him and Yuzuki, and Chitose promises that it won't happen again. They asked him to keep his word through a pinky promise, saying that they would chop off his willy if he broke it, to which Chitose agreed. Sometime later, he overhears a beautiful humming coming from the rooftop, so he follows it and finds Asuka chilling there. He decides to join her and asks for the usual, and Asuka knows exactly that he needs some counseling from her. After a whole venting session of hearing Chitose's problems, Asuka tells Chitose what makes him beautiful and enigmatic, which is that he always thinks that he can handle everything by himself and needs nobody else, when in reality, he has everyone on his corner who wants to help him. Just then, Yuzuki walks in looking for him, and Chitose introduces her to Asuka, who is a year older than them. Asuka recognizes Yuzuki as the girl Chitose vented to her about, so she tells Yuzuki a piece of advice, and that is not to look away, considering how much she is similar to Chitose. Out of curiosity, Yuzuki asks her what kind of relationship she has with Chitose. Asuka says that her relationship with him is of a hot older mommy who likes to cream glizzies and a young lad who likes to goon, which takes Chitose and Yuzuki back and makes Yuzuki suspicious. On their way home, Yuzuki expresses how surprised she is to know that there is someone special like Asuka in Chitose's life. Chitose tries to assure her that Asuka is no one to him, but Yuzuki rejects his excuse and says that it hurts her to know that there is someone else who can speak to him on the safe wavelength and understands him deeply. When Chitose tries to say something back, Yuzuki stops him and says that she understands that while they are not real lovers, she sees him as someone special, but knows that the feeling might not be mutual, which hurts the ego of her who always thought she was special. She then gestures to him to hold her hands, saying that she wants him to make her feel at least a bit special, but while he knows that it's the right thing to do, he rejects her offer. Then, at her place, they find an anonymous letter, and when they look inside, they find pictures of Yuzuki with Chitose's face being all scratched out as a threat, ordering them to break up. Despite the terrifying message, Yuzuki keeps a brave, strong face and jokes about it, but Chitose knows it won't last long, so he tells himself that he needs to end this as quickly as possible. That night, Chitose talks with Naruse to give him info about Yuzuki as a person, and Chitose asks him what made him fall in love with Yuzuki in the first place. Naruse confesses that he first fell for her looks, but then, an incident happened where Yuzuki helped him, while everyone else walked past him, which was the moment he fell for her. Hearing that, Chitose orders Naruse what he should do, is to delete that version of Yuzuki from his head, and actually start talking to her to get to know her better, and even then, he should decide whether he's in love with her or not. From that night on, Naruse keeps calling him to get more information, but also more envelopes filled with pictures show up, threatening Yuzuki to break up with Chitose. The following day, it's a big match day for Yuzuki and her basketball team, and Chitose shows up to support as a good boyfriend, joined by Kaito, who is there to enjoy the match. Just then, they notice something bad has happened to Yuzuki and rush over to her. They learn from the basketball coach, and that Yuzuki's basketball shoes are gone, and Chitose quickly deduces that the stalker took it from their changing room. So with the help of Kaito, Chitose promises to Yuzuki that he will find her the shoes, reminding her of the bet they made if she wins the match. It turns into a race against time, but Chitose knows that if the stalker wants to get into Yuzuki's head, he wouldn't throw away the shoes, but instead will try to hide it for them to find later. And just as he predicted, Chitose returns moments later with the shoes in his hands and quickly hands them to Yuzuki. She points out how he got leaves in his hair and scraped his elbow, signs that he truly fought for her. Then, Yuzuki puts on her shoes, ties her hair and tells Chitose to watch her, claiming that it will be a masterpiece of a performance. The coach then tells Chitose that he should watch the match on the bench with them, and Chitose thanks her, but also says that he will need part of the basketball team's budget to fix the bushes, considering he found the shoes in the archery range. She accepts, and they watch the game, where the coach informs Chitose how Yuzuki is the LeBron James to Haru's Michael Jordan, assisting and making the right plays while shooting the lights out to chase down the deficit. Then with only a few seconds left on the clock, Haru throws her the rock, and as Yuzuki goes up for the three-pointer, Chitose can't help but notice how beautiful and elegant she looks as she hits the shot, winning them the game. Afterward, Chitose calls up and apologizes to Kaito for leaving him behind. Still looking for the shoes hours later, he promises to treat him to some ramen and some hot babes after school. Just then, Yumura pops up, and Chitose teases him for having a date with Nazuna during the game, but he quickly tells him that he was simply accompanying her, who used to love basketball. Chitose asks him where Nazuna is, and Yumura tells him that she left as soon as Yuzuki made the game winner, saying that she was pissed to see her become the hero. Then, Chitose tries to get information and asks Yumura whether he knows any Yakin student, but Yumura says that he doesn't, and that the only Yakin students he knows are friends of Nazuna. Yumura asks why he asked, and Chitose says that he got into a fight with them, which amuses Yumura before leaving. Right after, Haru pops up with ice lollies for him and congratulates him for the great work he just did. Chitose compliments her for the great game alongside Yuzuki, but Haru tells him that Yuzuki was so on fire today due to what he did for her. Chitose assures her that he only did what he did because they made a bet, and Yuzuki wanted a date with him. Haru then lies down on the bench, puts her feet on Chitose's thighs, and demands that he give her a massage. When Chitose tries to refuse, Haru teases him for being excited over merely feet, and that she can already feel his bulge rising, forcing him to do what she asks. Then, Haru asks Chitose whether he would have done the same thing for her that he did for Yuzuki with the shoes, and he says that he probably wouldn't, considering Haru is the type of person to tell him to simply sit down and watch the game instead of running on a wild goose chase. That answer disappoints Haru a little, but then Chitose tells her that he also wouldn't give Yuzuki a foot massage the same way he did to her, and when she asks why, Chitose claims that Yuzuki is just so much hotter that he would simply bust at the sight of her feet, annoying Haru. Afterward, he and the girls go to eat some ramen to discuss the situation they're facing, and Chitose suspects that while the Yakon students are involved, they weren't the ones who stole her shoes, meaning that the stalker might be from their school. Haru quickly suspects that it might be Yumura and Nazuna, and Chitose puts it down as a possibility, not wanting to tell them first about how Yumura actually tried to help them for now. Then, the food arrives and Yuzuki watches as Haru and Chitose easily tries each other's foods without being bothered of trading plates and chopsticks. Seeing her watching, Harold teases him and asks if she's bothered seeing her giving Chitose an indirect kiss, but Yuzuki assures her that she's not bothered. But then she mentions about the massages and Yuzuki gets bothered quickly. And Haru continues about yapping of Chitose has the great techniques that made any woman squeal. She then asks about the date they're about to be going on, and Yuzuki is annoyed that Chitose would tell her that, but quickly assures Haru that the date they're going is merely as a show to sell their fake relationship. Haru calls her out on her lies, saying that Yuzuki is actually more of a girly girl than she ever thought she was, and Yuzuki takes offense over that. So they go on to play some air hockey to settle their rivalry, and Haru quickly takes the lead. For the final run, Haru challenges Yuzuki to make a bet with her, and that if Yuzuki defeats Haru, she will automatically be given the win despite losing on points, but if Haru wins then she will be the one replacing Yuzuki and going on a date with Chitose. That bet angers Yuzuki, and the two of them go on a massive battle all the while Chitose can only watch them go at each other. The next day, for the date, Chitose awaits for his date, which turns out to be Yuzuki, who blows him away with how beautiful she looks in her kimono and makes him all sentimental. He tries to cover up his feelings by teasing her and saying that the kimono makes her curves look creamier, but when Yuzuki teases him back, offering him to take a look, Chitose quickly folds and decides to start the date. As they walk into the festival, Yuzuki slowly holds his hand, but instead of rejecting it like before, Chitose lets it happen, acknowledging that it's a special day for them. They start by eating candied apples, and it reminds Chitose of the old days when he used to come to the festivals with his little allowances and get excited whenever a girl from his class showed up. But back in the present, he can't believe that now he's on a date with prettiest girl in school in the festival he loves so much. Then, they go to catch some goldfish, and when Yuzuki fails to get one, Chitose teases her for being a complete amateur. Yuzuki asked him to catch some for her, and Chitose informs her that he used to be so good with the game that he got banned for catching too many fishes, and he demonstrates by using special techniques and easily catches the fish that she wants, which amazes her. Right after, they sit down and see jokes about how she should name the fishes after him, but while she gazes at the fishes with an innocent look, she totally can't help but think to himself how melancholic everything makes him feel, knowing that the moment they are sharing will not last forever. Then, they eat some festival foods, and when Yuzuki asks to try some of Chitose's food, he happily accepts, but instead of using her own chopsticks, she deliberately asks to use the ones he just used, just so she can taste an indirect kiss from him. Then they drink some fizzy ramoon, and laugh as if the night and moment lasts forever, even though they know that just like the date, it won't. Afterward, they find a tree that's supposed to bring luck to future husbands and wives. Yuzuki invites him to put his hands on the tree alongside hers, and while she has her high eyes fully closed, praying to make the future happen, Chitose can only watch her as she does so. Suddenly, the goon from Yakan pops up and disturbs them, which ends with Yuzuki on the floor. When Chitose tries to help her up, the goon kicks him, making him fall right on top of her. As Suzuki is holding onto him, Chitose can feel her trembling. All the while the goon is calling her disgusting names. Then the boss of the goon pops up, and he calls Yuzuki by name, which makes her tremble more in fear. Deep down, Chitose wants nothing more than to explode in anger, but he quickly pulls it back and calms himself down. He tries to play it playful and cool with the goons, saying that his girlfriend is his and his only. The boss gets aggressive, demanding that Izuki's cheeks are his to crack, and he pressures Yuzuki, demanding to know why she's dating some loser when she could have been doing tricks on his glizzy. Then, the boss reminds Yuzuki of their past, saying that whenever she gets scared and teary, she looks so hot that any man would want a piece. In that moment, Chitose's true nature is about to come out, deviously planning to sock this guy in the throat and watch him choke, but before he gets to do it, he remembers his promise to the girls of not getting himself in danger, which stops the darkness from taking over. So instead, he screams like a little weasel to make sure that everyone listens, saying that these goons are planning to take his girl away from him by force and commit unspeakable violence against him. That gets the police's attention, and the goons quickly walk away to avoid trouble. With that, Chitose is relieved that they are now safe, convincing himself that the most manly thing he could do is to embarrass himself to protect his girl from danger. A day later, Chitose sits with Naruse at a restaurant, and he feels jealous that Chitose gets to go on a date with Yuzuki at a festival. Naruse then points out how unusual it is for Yuzuki to miss school, and Chitose tries to scold him about reading things too much, but Naruse says he merely wants to help her whenever he can. Chitose says that what he should be focusing on is helping himself, which is by starting to talk to Yuzuki, instead of only being her fanboy if he ever wants to date her. Chitose states by starting to talk to her, Naruse will get a chance to get to know her better, and even get a chance to ask her out on a date. Naruse asks what will happen if he gets rejected, and Chitose simply says that he should just goon to Mia Khalifa till the night falls, cry his eyes out, and start a band so he can sing depressing songs about his broken heart. Hearing that annoys Naruse, and he tells Chitose that the only reason he's able to say that is that he himself has never been in love. Chitose suspects that it might be the case, but Naruse quickly apologizes for what he just said, reminding himself that Chitose is trying to help him. That night, Chitose texts Yuzuki to joke about her being sick and whether his magical sausage can make her healthy again. They go back and forth for a little while before Yuzuki tries to explain herself, saying that what happened during the festival wasn't the real her. Chitose eases the tension by asking about the goldfishes he won for her, and tells her to tell the fishes that she loves them. But then, she confesses to Chitose that she loves him, and he warns her that her words might make him get the wrong, but she fully admits that she would love for him to feel that way for her. Carried by the mood, Chitose directly asks her to be his real girlfriend, and while she wants nothing more than that, she rejects him, saying that they should deal with their issues first. Seeing that makes Chitose happy to know that she's still herself, and tells her to come to school the next day, to which she says she will. The next morning, Yuzuki is back in class, and Chitose is happy to see her back to normal. Just then, Uemura and Azuna walk into class, and Azuna accidentally knocks over Yuzuki's desk, and pictures fall off. There she sees pictures of the date she went with Chitose, and Yuzuki quickly covers the map from Azuna, who thinks it's foolish for Yuzuki not to want to own the fact that she's dating Chitose. She then realizes from the expressions that Yuko doesn't know about it, and she calls out Yuzuki for playing behind her back despite being her friend, which makes Nazuna believe more than ever that she doesn't deserve Chitose. After school, they are joined by Kenta at a ramen shop, and he notices immediately the tension between the two girls. You could get straight to the point and ask Yuzuki what she's actually doing, seeing how they were holding hands and going on festival dates, despite claiming that it's a fake relationship. She then asks Yuzuki if it has to be Chitose who plays her fake boyfriend, suggesting that anyone can play that role to get the stalker off her back. However, she knows that's not the case, and she suggests that Yuzuki should just date Kenta or Kaito and hold their hands, but Yuzuki fully admits that she can't do that. It's then that Yuko realizes that she has a rival in Yuzuki, and she declares it through a handshake. Yuzuki tries to deny that she has any feelings, but Yuko calls her out on her nonsense, and says that since Yuko knows Chitose better than anyone, that means she's in the lead. Hearing that makes Yuzuki laugh, and she fully accepts being considered Yuko's rival. Then, Yuko turns her attention to Chitose, and she scolds him for being busy going on dates in yukatas and going to festivals when he should have been focusing on getting rid of the stalker behind Yuzuki's back. To make it even, she tells Chitose that at the next festival, he will have to go on a date with her, and he will have to wear yukatas the same way he wore one on the date with Yuzuki, to which Chitose has no choice but to accept. The next day at school, when she, those, and Yuzuki arrive at class, they are greeted by sharp stares. Nazuna jumps in and calls Yuzuki out for her fake Miss Popular persona. From her phone, she shows a picture of her years ago with the same goon that harassed her, claiming that she's nothing more than a dirty hoe who likes to get piped hard, who tries to show herself as this beautiful prude princess. Out of anger and desperation, Yuzuki accuses Nazuna of being the stalker behind all of this, claiming that she was the person who stole her basketball shoes and secretly worked for the Yakan students, hence why she was there during the basketball game. Nazuna says that she's not, but Yuzuki fully believes that it's the facts. Frustrated, Nazuna slams her phone to the ground and says that while she's not the nicest girl around, she will never go around people's backs, instead of facing the people she hates like Yuzuki face to face. Before it gets too far, Chitose stops Yuzuki from saying anything more, and Uemura jumps in to say that while Nazuna is not exactly nice, the reason she was at the basketball game is purely that she's a fan of Yuzuki's game, considering she herself was once a basketball player. Realizing how much of a filthy pig she acted, Yuzuki runs out of class just as the teacher pops up, and knowing that something big is going down, Kura sends off Chitose to chase after her. He finds them sitting in the dark while listening to the rain, so he decides to sit beside her and cheer her up, even though his cheesy jokes are not working. He then asks her what he can do to stop the rain that is falling, and she says that he can start singing. Following her words, Chitose starts humming a beautiful song, not to stop the rain, but the tears that are flowing down her beautiful face. When the rain stops, she stops crying as well, and while she goes back to class first, Chitose stays behind, frustrated that he couldn't end her struggle sooner, knowing that she can't keep her facade any longer. After school, Kaito informs Chitose while panicking that Yakan students are surrounding the school, waiting to intercept Chitose and Yuzuki. Thinking fast, Chitose orders the rest of his buddies to go home without him, while he and Yuzuki will simply wait out the Yakan students until they get bored and go home. However, after hours and hours of waiting, they all stuck by the school, even under the falling rain. So Chitose tells Yuzuki that they will just simply go home, but he informs her that he already has a plan. When they reach the school gates, the Yakan goons intercept them and start harassing the couple. Chitose stands in front of Yuzuki to protect her and keeps triggering the goon, calling him a limp-willy loser as a part of his plan. Out of anger, the goon grabs Chitose by the collar, but in that moment, Kura pops up and walks toward them. With a full-on swagger, he splits up the fight, and when the Yakan goon tries to attack him, he easily deflects the attack, hurting the goon. Kura expresses how he used to be a part of them, but now feels disgusted seeing how weak they have become compared to his era. The goon warns him that teachers are not supposed to touch students, but Kura coldly tells him that, considering that his school is superior than Yakan, he will face no repercussions. With little to no issue, he tells the Yakan students to go home, and they do just that. Afterward, Yuzuki ponders the situation she's facing, wondering loudly whether she did anything wrong. Chitose assures her that she did nothing wrong and offers to walk her home, but Yuzuki stops him and begs him to take her home with him, saying that she doesn't want to be alone tonight. Then, at Chitose's place, they sit in silence and in the darkness, both being wet due to the rain. Chitose dries her head with a towel, then sits right beside her in silence, knowing what's about to happen between them. Yuzuki then leans into him, slowly and tenderly touches him, wanting him to embrace her and make her forget everything about what happened. However, Chitose stops her and pushes her down before pinning her completely.
Yeah, boy.
Yuzuki starts crying, begging for mercy, but Chitose refuses to stop, demanding that the real Yuzuki, the one who is strong and smart, come back to him, not the weak Yuzuki he's looking at. Out of anger, Yuzuki kicks Chitose in the dangleberries, and he squeals in pain, saying that she should have done it lighter. After they both calm down, they turn on the light, get some drinks, and sit down to have a serious conversation. Yuzuki reveals that years ago at school, she was the school's prima donna who was able to keep her distance from everyone due to her street smarts and clever mouth to get away from trouble. However, the school's most popular bad boy, the head honcho of the goons, Yanashida, took an interest in her and demanded that she become his. When Yuzuki tried to reject him, the guy got upset and almost forced himself on her before slapping her for rejecting him. In that moment, she felt powerless and cried out of fear, but Yanashida and his goons all laughed at her, creating a lifelong trauma. After hearing that story, Chitose hugs her and comforts her, saying thank you over and over again to Yuzuki for staying the beautiful and smart Yuzuki despite everything she went through. With his comfort, Yuzuki lets go and cries herself on his shoulders, knowing that she has Chitose as someone she can trust. Then she thanks him for forcing her to understand that violence is not always the answer, and that brains can be used to handle situations the same way he handled those goons at the festival. With his hand caressing her cheek, she thanks him for being her hero and even offers him to crack her tonight, to which he rejects.
Come on, man.
Remembering how she kicked his dangleberries just before. Right after, while Chitose goes on to cook, Yuzuki goes on and take a bath while teasing him about joining her, which he rejects every time. Then, when she goes on and talks about the shampoo she used and the hair dryer she's using, she discovers that Chitose got the recommendations from other girls like Yuwa and Yuko, which makes Yuzuki jealous. So she reasserts her dominance by showing up to him in a fit that would make any man drool and start barking like a dog. That night before bed, Yuzuki asks Chitose whether he has anyone that he loves. Yuzuki expresses how she doesn't believe she could ever fall in love, considering that all the men who approached her only loved the version of her they had in their minds. To answer her question, Chitose recalls how he used to have a girl who used to follow him around during the summer, hung out with him, and slowly make him fall for her. However, one day she stopped showing up, and that was the end of his little puppy love story. But Yuzuki adds that because she disappeared, he never lost the perfect idea, of who she was. As Yuzuki falls asleep, Chitose thinks to himself how love is a rose-tinted glasses that looks back in the past, and he imagines how in years to come he will look at this night the same way he did the girl of his past. By the next morning, Yuzuki is already gone, and Chitose meets up with Yuwa on the way to school, where she finds a lipstick-tinted note on his neck thanking him for the night he spent with her. She calls them out for being a complete playboy who spends nights cracking cheeks, but Chitose assures her that nothing happened, which she believes. Then in class, Chitose finds Yuzuki starting to fix up her issues, starting with apologizing to Nazuna for her horrible words and thanking her for coming to her game. She then tells Kaito and the others that she will no longer be fake dating Chitose, as she's planning to handle her issues with the Yekon goons by herself, believing that with what Chitose has given her, it will be enough. Afterward, Chitose meets up with Naruse and tells him about how Yuzuki spent the night with him. It shocks Naruse so much that he spills his coffee, and he asks if it means that Chitose will be going out with Yuzuki for real now. Chitose assures him that nothing happened during the sleepover, and that he will stop being her fake boyfriend. Seeing Naruse confused, Chitose decides to tell them the truth about everything Yuzuki faced, and Naruse thanks him for trusting him with the information, but now believes that he is nowhere near capable of being her boyfriend. Later, Chitose accidentally runs into Asuka, and they decide to have another counseling session like usual. But this time, Asuka vents about how she's confused on whether she should leave the city and go to Tokyo or stay forever. She expresses how she both loves and hates the city. And Chitose knows that feeling too well, considering everyone living there thought about moving out to a bigger city. Deep down, it makes him happy to know someone like Asuka has those kinds of thoughts just like him. But it makes her sad that knowing she will one day no longer be alongside him. Asuka then asks him about the situation with Yuzuki, but this time Chitose decides not to tell her anything, saying that he's preparing himself for a life without her by his side to talk with. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down below Playboy, and if you love anime recaps like this, watch this video.